Two-time Grammy winner Stefan Sagmeister is one of the most highly praised designers living today. He has done work for notable artists and musicians such as Lou Reed, the Rolling Stones, Jay-Z, Brian Eno, and David Byrne. In the 1990s, Sagmeister made a name for himself in music packaging and CD design, at a time when CDs were considered a poor art form. Today, music design is only a very small part of what he does at his agency, Sagmeister & Walsh. His unorthodox approach to materials, typography, and finding emotion in design have been showcased in museums and galleries around the world. Hey, welcome to Noisy Design. I'm Matt Shane. We're in New York City right now. We're about to go interview Stefan Sagmeister. We want to know, basically, what got you interested into music, in particular, music design?
I used to play in really terrible bands. Sort of prog rock bands. I think through playing in the bands, I got interested in, album covers.
This is the King Crimson cover that made me become a designer.
It's this shouting guy, I think it's still kind of iconic. And I drew whatever that was, 2 meter by 2 meter version of it in 6H pencil, took me weeks and was just endlessly impressed by that image and possibly by this idea that you could listen to music and somehow transform that into a visual, and could do that as a profession. I had an idea to open a place for album covers, but this was then in '93, and of course by then vinyl was basically gone and it was the CD cover.
Oh my God, these are still packaged. Let me see if I can get around the pain in the ass that were these.
Well, that's interesting because I think, from the mid-'80s to early '90s, CDs were not really considered an art form. It was like, what's your opinion in terms of the difference between the vinyl art piece itself and the CD and how you could elevate that?
What happened was that basically record companies took the art that was supposed to be this size, shrunk it down to this size, and of course that didn't work. It looks horrible. But when you started out with the CD format, you could actually do quite some stuff. There was larger possibilities for stories because you had so many more panels that were cheap to do. It didn't matter if you made a 4-page booklet or a 12-page booklet because the difference in price was so minimal.
This is Pat Metheny. That you have like a decoder ring here on the CD itself that, has all that language, and there was an incredible fight with the record label that the spine would also be written in that.
So if you were going through the rack, all you would see was just pictographs?
Yes, and there's some more of them in here, of course. And so this one was Mountains of Madness. You take it out. When it's outside, the guy just becomes angrier. And then the same is true for the band shop. Even this text change, see, when it's open it says, we get up at noon and go for a bite. Isn't our life just great? And then when you close it, it says, I'll rip your fucking head off and I'll shit down your neck.
And we also noticed something similar for Jay-Z, a Jay-Z album. Did you guys also make that?
We actually did, and Jay, he had our book and he said, this is what I want. And I said, well, it's not so interesting. We've done it before. And he actually had a pretty good argument. He said, so how many did you print of that? And I said, I don't know, 5,000 or whatever. And he said, well, our first print run is 5 million. So this is like me doing it in a club and then taking what I developed in the club out into the stadium.
Yeah, I mean, how do you deal with that when you have a label or a musician sort of dictating the creative to you and what they want? Do you find that often?
I mean, I think like in any job, the more cooks, the more difficult it becomes. And I think that neither the music nor the art for the music is best served by a democracy. It's much easier if there is a person who briefs and a person that makes a decision.
One of the most recognizable albums, Rolling Stones, Bridges to Babylon. How did that come about?
The Stones, they're very careful to own the artwork because they have, a fairly significant merchandising arm that, sells anything from the normal stuff like t-shirts and leather jackets all the way to pencil sharpener and eraser kits. Jagger wanted to have a symbol that looked good on a baseball cap. So when I saw the Assyrian lions in the British Museum, it was pretty clear, okay, we can make something out of that that will be symbolic. Jagger is a Leo in the star sign.
Yeah.
There was the British lion, so there was like a lot of enough connotations
yeah.
around.
And the person you found the easiest to work with, was it David Byrne?
Definitely among my favorite clients, yeah, absolutely. Musicians quite often, to be as good as they are, spend their youth in a basement rehearsing. And that sometimes leads to being fairly pedestrian when it comes to visuals. That's of course not the case with David, like he's very sophisticated visually.
I like symmetry and geometric shapes. I wanted my head to appear smaller, and the easiest way to do that was to make my body bigger.
And he has a surprisingly tiny ego, so it's always about how can we make this cover better, and not like, oh, this is my idea or your idea. We did a good number of jobs with David, both on album covers or we did a box set for the Talking Heads, and we did.
Oh, and won a Grammy too.
Yeah,
Could you tell us a little about the birth of that idea?
Originally for the Talking Heads, I thought that would be super interesting to do like one of those marble, like fake marble busts, like you normally have like Mozart or so, but do an angry monkey in it. And must have been Warner Brothers got a new marketing manager. He looked at that bust and said, but that's not gonna go into the regular record bins, which was a completely stupid idea. Normally if you buy the Frank Sinatra box set, it might be this size. None of they always were separate in album covers. So basically as a fuck you, we designed something that was so long, but so skinny that it would still fit into a regular record bin. I mean, of course, nobody would ever put it there because it would be awkward. And somehow that sailed through.
What recently won a Grammy with Brian Eno and David Byrne. Everything Happens. Can you tell us about that project?
It actually designed itself fairly quickly. The music sounded quite everyday-ish with a very dark side to it. When you open it, you hear a person go through the house, like there's a recording going on, like outside of the CD. As you go into the house, and there's sort of like little clues as there is definitely something very a mess with like, strange things going on in the basement, but it's only hinted at.
One thing that's a key signature that we've seen in your work is your own handwriting and sort of that tactileness that you put to your work. How did that come about with your collaboration with Lou Reed?
Set at Twilight Reeling was the album that was basically after he met Laurie Anderson. And that really made a huge difference in his life. I mean, his outlook changed. And it was a fairly positive album. That was, of course, what the cover was about, from still being this dark print when the album was close to a much brighter view when you have the booklet out. But it was also a very, very personal album. So I think that's where the handwriting came in, to basically make sure that the person who looks at the work would know that this was not made by a machine. Lou was very protective of that space. The packaging was like, that was still the music.
That was the sacred place for
exactly,
him, right?
Yes, yeah.
How did that process happen, and how did you get in touch with Lou Reed at the time?
Well, Lou actually came by, unannounced. The doorbell rang and the doorman downstairs said, well, there's Lou Reed here for you. So what happened was that the doorman on his, I think, cassette Walkman was listening to Lou. And when he came in, he showed him, look, I'm just listening to you, which apparently put him in a good mood. And I opened the door here, and there is Lou, and he says, he didn't say hello, he just said, you live in a great building with fantastic doorman with very good taste in music.
Is it true you find the music video being distracting to the music itself?
I'm actually now careful to not watch any videos, because I don't want somebody else's vision in my head when I listen to music. I find that the album cover gives me just enough of an information to sort of see where they are going visually. I sit down here and I do for half an hour nothing but maybe have an espresso and listen to one side of a good album.
Sounds awesome.
And it's amazing how much music is actually produced that's worthwhile to be listened to like that. For my own fantastic album cover collection, if you would say you're only allowed to select from 2 years in music history. Without a doubt, I would select 2014, 2015.
Really?
Yes, without a doubt. I quite like the Yellow Wolf cover.
This one I just love a lot. Karen O's Crush songs. And again, it comes with this beautiful, very fat booklet. The drawings being illustrations of the songs.
I don't think that a visual piece by itself can change my mood as readily and as directly as music can.
Do you feel that in order to have a good cover, you have to have good music?
Yes, yes. It's but luckily it works quite well this way. Meaning I buy by cover only, and it's very rare that a very good cover has packages music that's awful. It does exist, but it's very rare. Ultimately, a good cover is only made into an icon by the quality of the music. Like if, you know, Sgt. Pepper's would have been made for the Monkees instead of the Beatles, we wouldn't know how that looks like. It wouldn't have mattered.